Vikings lose 19-17 to the Bears. Tried to rescue an absolutely terrible performance from the lost pile at the very end. 2 touchdowns gave them the 17-16 lead. A deserved loss, though. I will say that a deserved loss. Bears come down, score field goal with no time left. Beat the Vikings 19-17. Vikings 4-6 on the season. You can kiss any realistic hopes of a playoff berth, playoff contention. Kiss that goodbye. Maybe there's a silver lining to that. I'll get to that in a little bit. But before we get to any of that, before we get to any perceived silver linings, anything that you can take positive out of this game, we have to speak a plain truth. Until the final drive, which was good, J.J. McCarthy was as concerning today as he has been at any point this season. He was just flat out bad. He's been probably kind of lightly called inconsistent as time has gone on in his the first 4 starts of his career. I think we politely called him inconsistent when really it was probably like 2/3 not great, 1/3 pretty good or really good sometimes. Today was bad. He missed throw. We know he's going to be inconsistent. A young quarterback is going to have some misses and reads. He's going to have some misses here and there. He was just flat out missing throws. The accuracy was just so bad. It was just so bad. I think he was 11 for 26 at one point, maybe 11 for 27. I think he hit on all 5 or close to all 5 on the last 5 of 6 on the last drive, something like that, to get them in the end zone to go ahead. It's an admirable trait of his. He plays his best usually when it matters most. That's a nice trait to have. Know what else is a nice trait to have? Throwing the ball to somebody on target and having him catch it. He was bad in this game, concerning to the point where I'm getting texts from friends like, "Uh-oh, like this is it. Like we no longer harbor any illusions." This is their words, not mine. We no longer harbor any illusions of what the ceiling is. They're like, if you're missing this bad, the ceiling is diminished. Now, listen, I'm not saying we're giving up on J.J. McCarthy. I'm not saying this is hopeless. I'm not saying you don't ride this out. I'm not saying he can't get better or will get better. What I am saying is this. He was awful today for almost all of the game, and he was the reason they lost primarily. It was some complimentary football losing. We'll get to that in a minute, but he was the primary reason they lost the game. And he lost a lot of the optimists today. He lost them forever. Football fandom, football, the game. It rises, it falls, it ebbs and flows. We know this. He might not have lost everybody for good today, but he lost some people along the way. People who were willing to say 2-2 so far, seen some good things, seen some bad things, 2 division wins. Hey, the first game against Chicago, it wasn't great until the 4th quarter, but look at that comeback. Then he hurt his ankle. Then he had the long layoff. And look, he comes back and beats Detroit. Yeah, last week was bad. A lot of inaccurate passes, but add it all up, 2-2, about what maybe you would expect to a certain degree from a rookie. Today, just more of those misses. Too many misses. Too many throws that don't have the right pace, don't have the right trajectory, or just flat out miss guys. Now, receivers didn't do him a lot of favors. There was a couple drops. Hawkinson dropped one on the last drive that really could have cost them until they did convert on 4th down. Jefferson could have had one over the middle. I think he would have liked to have it over the middle, but again, that's not, that wasn't like a pure drop. Addison had one that's certainly a drop. Thielen could have had one. Like, there's a lot of ones that were in there like, yeah, his teammates didn't help him out, but he also could put a little bit more touch on some of those passes, and he was just wildly off on probably 7 or 8 throws today where you're like, man, where did that come from? Can you teach around that? Can you coach around that? Can you get better from there? So that's the pure truth. That's the plainly stated truth. J.J. McCarthy was awful. They almost escaped in spite of that, and because of his admirable quality, being able to play his best in the final moments, which is, again, that's a good skill to have. That's something you can work with, something you can build on. That's not going to work usually, though. You've got to be better for 4 quarters, not just half a quarter. So that's where we are right now. I wrote on Twitter, this is, complimentary football in that loss. Bill on X Twitter, I thought distilled it really well. He said, with this quarterback, defense and special teams have to be perfect. It's unrealistic. The defense was really good today, I thought. They only gave up, 16 points until the final moments where the Bears get a short field. The special teams were pretty good for most of the game too. You had a nice Miles Price, punt return that gets them into range to go in and get the touchdown that gets it to 16-10. You had you had a missed field goal for the Bears. I don't think that's necessarily good special teams for the Vikings, but that was the special teams break. But then, of course, you get the long kickoff return with, right at the end, you see Kevin O'Connell. I don't know if he was saying it to anybody in particular, but I swear I saw Matt Daniels cross his path as he's saying it. I think there was an expletive in there, but basically, are you kidding me? To give up a big return to the Bears. Bears get it all the way down to like the 40 of the Vikings, less than a minute left. That lets them just basically do 3 running plays, field goal, boom. Bears get out of there 1970. So it was a team effort in that the defense had some lapses, gave up some big runs, didn't get Caleb Williams to the ground, but really the defense probably did enough to win that game. Special teams had its ups and downs. They could have made if they make one more play. Let's say they stop that kickoff return at the 23. The Vikings might win that game. So again, you can say it was a loss in all 3 phases, and I think that's fair. But you've got to put most of it at the feet of the offense. You got to put most of it at the feet of JJ McCarthy. And someone on X, sarcastically saying you're going to blame this all on McCarthy. I'm not going to blame it all on McCarthy, but mostly 70%, 80%. And again, that's not to say that it can't get better. Okay, I'm not saying this is a failed project. I'm not saying stop after 5 games. I agree with Cody Fuller on Twitter saying the blame needs to be at McCarthy's feet. Terrible accuracy all day. Put them in that position. I want him to succeed, but at this point in time, he is the reason this team is in the basement. I'd expand that further. Quarterback play is the reason the Vikings are 4-6 right now. The defense wasn't as good as it could have been early in the season, missing some guys. When Van Ginkel's out, that hurts. When Cashman was out, that hurts. You see Grenard out today. They played fine without him, but that is a hard one to lose as well. So you're talking about, some possibilities there where the defense could have been better, could have been more dominant, but really the passing game has been so bad. Carson Wentz was bad. Okay. He filled in admirably. If you look at all the numbers though, he was bad. The offensive line in front of him was bad. JJ McCarthy has been bad. Their quarterback play, I dare say, has been among the 5 worst in the NFL this season. And that's after last year when it was certainly top half, maybe top 10 with Sam Darnold. That's, after 2018 to 2023, when generally with Kirk Cousins, you were getting top half quarterback play. Now, top half quarterback play is not usually going to get you to a Super Bowl. So I get it. I know why they're doing this. We know why they're doing this. We know why this is the plan. You get the cheat code with the young quarterback on the cheap contract. If he's good, if he develops in a certain amount of time, you can really benefit. You can take off from there. Here's the problem. McCarthy hasn't been good yet this year, and he was hurt for half the game so far. So where does that leave you? 4-6. Now, here's what I was talking about at the beginning with potential silver linings, and I think a few of you brought this up, so maybe I'll bring that into the equation as well. Let's see. Here we go. Vikings pessimist here. This was Brandon P. Vikings pessimist here. People need to give up on this season. We were never a true contender. It's sad to waste a year of Jefferson, etc., but be realistic and just hope to see big growth in QB JJ. I'd rather tank this season, get a high pick, and window really starts next year on. So here's the thing. If you win this game, let's say the Bears don't make that field goal at the end. Let's say they get a stop and they don't even get into field goal range. Or say that field goal drifts another 6 feet left and they miss and the Vikings are 5-5. Then they're still in the race. They're still trying to win games. You're still like squinting at it like, man, 5-5, 3-0 in the division. It's still possible. So here though, it's done. You're 4-6. You're going nowhere. Your next 2 games are at Green Bay and at Seattle. Nobody likes the way you're playing right now. You're going nowhere. This entire season now is given over to solely JJ McCarthy's development. You're 4-6. You've got 7 regular season games left. These games still matter. You can say you want to win them, and that's true. Any realistic chance of making the playoffs is gone. Basically, because of your record, because of where you are in the conference, and because of the way JJ McCarthy is playing right now, I have zero confidence they go in and win in Green Bay. I have zero confidence they go in and win in Seattle. I don't really like them for a lot of the games the rest of this season. What we need to see now is, can JJ McCarthy get a lot better this year? Can he get a lot better this year? Not a little bit better, a lot better, because that's what you need to see in 7 games to feel like you don't have to start over, scrap all this, and do a dramatically different plan next season. That's where you are. That's where we are right now. That's all these 7 games matter. You got to get this thing going in the right direction. Otherwise, 2026 is suddenly a big puzzle. Over on Blue Sky, let's run through some Blue Sky. Carly says, really, the team needs to raise up their QB. Dropping all these passes had to stop. That's fair. They didn't help him. I said that. They didn't help him. He didn't help them either. Pat Casey says, it's a lost season, so probably ultimately better to lose that game. Again, I get that. I get that sentiment. There's a silver lining each way. I think if you're 5-5, I think it's better to be playing truly competitive football to a certain degree, but now we can stop harboring any illusions about where this team is headed. Pat Casey, by the way, one of the writers of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, had him on a podcast a while ago over at my Substack. He was a ton of fun. Adam West says, how many seasons do we need to pretend here? Teams need not just good but great quarterbacks to contend regularly for the Super Bowl. McCarthy is so far behind great, there is no realistic reason to believe. So do we have to wait until 2028, 29, 30 to draft a new quarterback? Again, that's rough. It's only 5 games. You'd like to see more at this point out of your rookie, your second-year quarterback. If you knew he was the guy or thought he was the guy, you'd want to see more progress in the struggle, even in 5 games. I get that. I'm not ready to go quite there yet, though. Back to School says Kevin O'Connell's got to go. His teams are constantly unprepared. He relies way too much on last-minute heroics to save him. We all know McCarthy stinks, but O'Connell hitched his wagon to him in spite of knowing his deficiencies better than everyone. That's harsh. I don't think KOC's got to go. I think he's a pretty good coach still. I don't think play calling was the problem today. I don't think run-pass balance was the problem today. I do wonder sometimes if 3rd and short, 4th and short, they might want to run the ball a little bit more like they didn't again today. But overall, this wasn't the KOC loss. This was a McCarthy loss. Tyler says, I think it's pretty obvious at this point McCarthy is not the guy. At 4-6, you have to see what you have in Brosmer. I disagree there. You still are invested in McCarthy at this point. The 2027 QB class will be better than 2026. So the big question is, who is the Vikings quarterback in 2026? You got to think it's still McCarthy at this point, but there's a lot to learn in these 7 games. So much to learn. They were set up to win this season if McCarthy was adequate, if the quarterback play was adequate, decent, top 15 or 20. That's what they needed out of their quarterback this year with everything else they had around them to be competitive. They have not gotten that from either of their quarterbacks. Mothy says competitive rebuild is a flop. Going to be some crazy questions at a certain point here. The drafts have not been good. Dallas Turner was better today, but I don't know. I don't know about him at this point. There's a lot at stake here, a lot at stake right now with the way they are playing. A lot of people agreeing with me that this was the day that they lost a little bit of hope or a lot of hope in McCarthy. I was like, man, at a certain point, I was like, if you want to win today, do you try Max Brosmer? Blame this on McCarthy's bruised hand. You remember he came in, he had a bandage on his hand early in the week. Full participant Thursday and Friday, so it seemed like he was good to go. We'll never probably know exactly how much it was bothering him, but you do have to factor that in. But this isn't the first game he's been inaccurate. This isn't the first game we've seen him struggle with some of these things. He had 2 picks, could have been 3, could have been 4. There was a lot of balls that he put up there to just kind of float into the ether. That's problematic. Like, man, the fact that they were even ahead in this game at the very end tells you the other two phases of the game up until the very end were awfully good. And that the Bears are not that good. But the Bears are 7-3. They are what the record is. Vikings are way back in the division now. Packers won today. Lions played a night against the Eagles, so the Lions might lose. But Bears are 7-3. Packers 6-3-1. The Vikings are very clearly in this moment the fourth best team in the division because they're getting the fourth best quarterback play. And really, it's not even close. Caleb Williams is erratic, but he is not J.J. McCarthy erratic at this point. He is, speaking of a guy who didn't get much help from his receivers, they dropped a bunch of passes today too. Like he is on an ascending arc at this point where J.J. McCarthy is not. So that's the troubling thing. And again, McCarthy's only played 5 games, hurt all last season. He's young. He's still just 22. He's got the intangibles. You can have all the intangibles in the world, though. If you can't play, if that piece of it is not coming into focus, if it's not coming together, then it's just not going to work. And again, I'm not saying it's never going to work. I am saying I'm as concerned right now as I've been. I'm as concerned right now as I've been with the trajectory of J.J. McCarthy, with where this is headed, with can you reasonably expect enough out of these next 7 games to say, oh yeah, sign me up for this with minimal competition at quarterback in 2026. I think at the very least, unless he shows you a ton more in the next 7 games, we're talking about a quarterback, a much better backup quarterback plan in 2026 at the very least. That's what we're talking about. I don't know what's wrong either. They talk about him in these glowing terms. They think he's got certain things that are going right for him. I don't know if O'Connell's in his ear too much. I don't know if something's not translating, if his footwork doesn't look great sometimes, his pocket presence doesn't look great. He doesn't have the reps. You think about it, he just doesn't have the throws yet to maybe be in that space, but it is concerning right now. It is very concerning. It is as concerned as I've been. And we're just not used to this. I wrote about this earlier this week. Like they haven't had a truly bad quarterback in a long time, right? Like it's been a long time since they had truly awful quarterback play. Maybe back to 2013, right? Before Bridgewater took over for most of 2014. Like 2013 was the Ponder, Matt Castle, Josh Freeman for a game. But then you had Bridgewater for most of 2 years. You had Sam Bradford. You had Case Keenum. Like that was competent quarterbacking. You had a lot of Kirk Cousins. Then you had Sam Darnold. And again, those guys are probably not going to win you a Super Bowl. So we know why they're doing this. But they feel further away from the Super Bowl right now than they have in a very long time. And that is as concerning as anything else. Let's finish there before we get too far ahead of ourselves, before we get too high over our skis. Royce and I'm sure we'll have way more on this tomorrow on the Monday morning version of Daily Delivery. Thanks for all the great questions and comments. Until later, I'm Michael Rand. Try to have a great rest of your Sunday.